Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome. This is Clavin Fernandez, a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. And in this tutorial series, we are going to infuse AI into a Power Automate desktop action. This is the first tutorial in the tutorial series, and we'll start with the basics. That is, we will get started with Azure OpenAI and look at it in the context of .NET or C#. That being said, the next important question is, what is Azure OpenAI? Azure OpenAI Services is an AI service provided by Azure, which gives you access to models such as ChatGPT-4, ChatGPT-3, Codex, DALL-E. This also exposes these models as REST APIs, which you can invoke with the programming language of your choice. In our case, we are going to go ahead and understand it in the context of .NET. So that being said, before getting into the Azure portal, I wanted to talk a little bit about limited access to Azure OpenAI services. Now, at the time of recording this video, Azure OpenAI services had limited access. When I say limited access, it was only currently available to an approved enterprise customer and a partner who wished to use OpenAI in their environment. Customers needed to submit a registration form which looked something like this. And once they registered the form, Microsoft would evaluate it and then they would approve it. So if you don't have access to Azure OpenAI service, you might have to fill this form. Understand this, the applications cannot be submitted with emails such as gmail.com, yahoo.com, hotmail.com, right? These applications will be denied. You can read the instructions out here. I will also drop the link of the limited access to Azure OpenAI services in the description section. That being said, I have already filled in, so I can provision an Azure OpenAI service. I already have created one. The one that I have created is MUH202. Don't ask me about the name, it's just a top secret name that I'm using. Under this, you will find something known as deployment models or model deployments. The model deployments is where you will find your models that we spoke about, DALL-E, ChatGPT-4, 3, etc., right? So initially, you will have to create your own deployment. In this case, I already have two provision. If I want to create another one, I need to click on create deployment and I need to select the deployment of my choice. Depending on your Azure subscription, you will be granted access to a particular model, right? In this case, I already have a deployment in here. The next important thing or a prerequisite would be to have Visual Studio installed on your computer. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open Visual Studio and we will start developing a very simple console applications in using Azure OpenAI. So let me quickly create a console application and I'll click next. I'll select a location and I'll click on next. I'll select the framework, that is .NET 6.0 long-term support, and I'll click on create. This will actually create a console application for me. Why are we doing this? That would be your first question. Understand this, to create an application or to create a custom action, you need to understand the basics of .NET, right? And you need to understand how does OpenAI work. So that is the reason we are doing this. That being said, let's go ahead and use the cloud ChatGPT model. And in this model, I'll go into deployment. I will click on cloud ChatGPT, right? So models. Okay, I'll select the cloud ChatGPT and I'll click on open in playground. What this does, this gives me a playground where I can go ahead and test my model. However, this UI that Microsoft has provided us gives us the code sample as well. For example, I can click on view code and it gives me the programming languages. Out here, you'll see it gives us programming language or the sample codes for Python, C Sharp, Curl, and JSON. We are interested in the .NET or the C Sharp bit of it. So what I can do out here, I can directly copy this. I can go back out here. Let me comment out this. I'll not remove this. Let's just comment it out and paste it here. So this is how our code looks like, right? So this looks not good because you see that there are many errors out here. So the first error that we need to resolve is we need to add the dependencies or the NuGet packages. So I'm going to go into tools and I'll click on manage NuGet packages, manage NuGet packages for the solution. And I will click on browse and I'll type in Azure AI.OpenAI, right? And I'll check the pre-release as well in pre-release because this is a NuGet package that is in pre-release. I'll go ahead and install this out here. I'll install the latest pre-release version. Say accept. I'll go back here. And if you see, the errors have been reduced to a great extent, right? We have one error out here which tells me about the chat messages. Fine, I think I know the problem. So let me go out here again into the tools, go into the NuGet package, say manage NuGet package. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to uninstall this NuGet package because it's in beta. And I'll release an older version of the package. Let's say I'll install version 5 and I'll click on I accept. This has been quite an issue, right, with the latest model, and I know it. That is the reason why I can go ahead and find a solution for it. I will go ahead and change the key. From where will I get the key? I'll get the key from here. So I'll copy it. And I'll put it out here. But do you think I'm going to expose my key just as? So what I have done is that I have added an app.config file. In the config file, I will change the value out here of key 0. Okay. So let me pause my video and get back by updating the key. Perfect. So I have updated the key. The next thing that I need to do is I need to go ahead and access this key. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first create a string variable. I'll just say s attribute, and I'm going to go ahead and add using system.configuration. I'm going to do that. If you don't have it, you can install it. And once that has been added, what I can do is I can try to access the key. And how do I access the key? I access the key using the configuration manager. So I'll access the key like this, key 0, and I'll pass this out here, right? So this is how my code will look like. At this point, I can go into the console and I can try to build my code, right? So I'm building my code and it shows that the build has succeeded. Perfect. So I can just go ahead and try to run my console application. Okay. It tells me it cannot be null, so something wrong out here. That's fine. Let's try to sort this out. Okay, so I will try to run this code. And the code fails, right? The code fails And the reason that the code fails is because I blindly copied it. So what I need to do, I'm not accessing the environment in Azure, so I'm not using an environmental variable. I'm using the key from the config or the app config file. So I need to pass in the key like this. And let me try again. So it tells me, okay, remove this. That's okay. Removing this. Then I can pass it like this, I guess. Okay, it expects another closing bracket. And let me try to run it again. So at this point, if everything has worked as expected, it still gives me an error. It tells me that it does not work with the ChatGPT 3.5 instruct model. Okay, so this is a good error. We need to be careful while selecting a model. So what I did is that I selected a model which is incorrect. That means it is not a chat completion model. I should have used this model. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the view code out here. Just going to copy this because I need to use a completion model. Trying to complete a statement. Change this out here. Okay. And I'll change this. That is my resource name. Should say stop because or else it will keep on giving me errors. So I just needed to change this, and most importantly, I need to update the key. So again, pausing the video, going into the app.config file and updating the key. So I have updated it. Let's go back and try to run this again. So I have changed my deployment name, and here it tells me that, it tells me something. Okay, it tells me something out here. So what I can do is I can just say console.writeLine, and maybe I just go ahead and put in the response to toString, and let me try to play this again. Okay. Let me put in something else. So song lyrics Vande Mataram. So let's see what comes out of it. Okay, try this again. So it gave me the choices. 0 gave me this. Do I have the content somewhere? So 0, message, and here is the content. So I need to access the content, right? So let's go ahead and try to access the content. So it's going to be response. Under response is going to be content. So under response, we are going to access the first array variable and then try that. Okay, so let's do that. So response. So what I'm going to do is under responses, I need to access the choices, the first element of the array, and then I need to go ahead and access the message. And I think I need to also access the content. Now this looks good to me, and let's see the output right now. Let's see if we get the lyrics for the song Vande Mataram. Perfect. So here, my friends, you see that the lyrics are out here, and our model has worked successfully. So at this point, you can ask it any song and it will return you the response. Now that you understand the basics of Azure OpenAI, the next step would be to integrate this into our custom action, which we can use in our Power Automate desktop. Thank you, have a great day, and bye-bye. But here, my friends, you need to understand that this is not really about songs, right? If you ask it any other question, for example, let's ask it, which is the largest populated country, it should give you the answer for that as well, because this is a chat completion model. So you can ask it any questions, be it normal questions, or it really tells you that China is the largest population and 1.4 billion. So this is about the basics, but how does the model actually work? To understand how the model works, there are a few important things out here. So if you look at the code closely, there's something known as temperature, max tokens, nucleus, frequency penalty, and presence penalty. What do these terms actually mean? So to understand these terms, let me go back into my slide and let me start explaining it for you. So first and foremost, we'll talk about the temperature. So the temperature in context of Azure OpenAI refers to the parameter used for text generation, and it controls the randomness of the generated text. So as an AI model, you can expect randomness, right? If I ask the same question over and over again, it will give me different answers. It might not give me different answers when I say which is the largest population in the world, but it might go ahead and give me a different answer if I just ask it, which is the brightest color, something like that. So if you want to go ahead and have a precise answer, you need to set the temperature to low. In that way, the model will tend to produce more predictable and conservative outputs favoring high confidence, right? If in contrast, if you put in a higher temperature, there will be more randomness. Understand that, allowing the model to explore a wide range of possibilities. In practical terms, adjusting the temperature helps the user to fine-tune the balance between what output they need. So finally, the parameter can be particularly useful for text generation where a balance between coherence and creativity is desired. Okay, so that is what the temperature does. The next important point that I was talking about was the nucleus sampling. So the nucleus sampling factor determines the size of the subset or the nucleus. Basically, the probability distribution for which words are sampled, right? So adjusting the sampling allows you to control the diversity in the Azure OpenAI services. For example, it's mainly based in the probability of the response. So nucleus sampling is also known as top P sampling. Okay, so if you hear this term top P, it is known as nucleus sampling. This method is used for text generation and to select the word from the probability distribution over a vocabulary. So when I say that, this also in fact manages the creativity. Understand this, when you adjust the temperature, you might not want to adjust the nucleus sampling because you cannot use both of them. I would rather use the temperature at times because that also gives me control over the randomness. Understand this, the probability of the response, for example, if you set it to 0.1, it considers the token in the top 10%, right? The top 10%. But however, if you give it to 1, then there will be more randomness. And it allows all the token. So overall, the nucleus sampling factor provides the user with the flexibility mechanism, same as the temperature, to balance the coherence and the novelty in the generated text. The next term that I want to talk about is frequency penalty. So again, it is used to control repetitive words, right? So frequency penalty addresses the issues by penalizing the model for repeating and selecting the same phrases or words again and again. Understand this. This might lead to less clarity at times if you keep the model, open, that is set it to high, and may also be encouraged because it gives you more creativity. So understand this, frequency penalty parameter allows user to control the degree of repetitiveness in the text is discouraged. Higher the frequency, stronger penalty, and the repeated words or phrases encouraging the model will be diverse and varied output. For example, it might use bright and shine as two different words, right? Rather than using bright and bright again. So that's what it does. So low number does not penalize the repetition. The lower the number, it does not penalize it. The higher the number, it penalizes it. Uses more commonly used words. Okay, just understand this. It by default uses more commonly used words. Again, this parameter is particularly useful and can be important because it can help creative writing, dialogue generation, and content creation. So for content creators, this is really important. So now that we have understood the code and basics of Azure OpenAI, the basic parameters that drive the AI model, in the next tutorial, we will go ahead and understand how we can use the learnings and create an intelligent action that we can use in Power Automate Desktop. Thank you.